Hello and welcome to our next reflection on the Catechism and on the nature of the Church. We all have different ministries, we all have different roles to fulfill, but it's important to remember that we do that within this single body of Christ, within the single people of God. And yet it's obvious that me, wearing this religious habit, have my own unique role to fulfill. That is different from the laity's role that they need to fulfill in the Church. That is again different from those people, even if they are priests, they are serving the Lord, but are not part of this religious life. And so there is a whole variety of gifts, of ministries to be fulfilled, but at the service of the unity and mission of the Church. And so we all have different missions, we all have different roles to fulfill. And the sanctity of the Church, the mission of the Church, the unity of the Church depends on us understanding what is my role in this whole body of Christ. What is my contribution about? So it's important to reflect, what is my place within this body of Christ? Why this ecclesial ministry? Why the ministry of the bishops, the Pope, the priests, and so forth? Well, the Catechism reminds us of an essential truth. You cannot give yourself the mandate and mission to proclaim the gospel. You cannot give grace to yourself either. It has to be given you and offered to you. How do you know about Christ unless Christ is preached? How will Christ be preached unless a preacher is sent? And so Christ sends the apostles. He is choosing the 12 to fulfill and carry on his mission, to offer the good news, to offer grace. That's the mission of the Church. So from the very beginning, he is choosing for himself, instituting the 12 as the beginning of this sacred hierarchy. And as part of that hierarchy, from among the 12, he is choosing Simon, whom he calls Peter the Rock. Simon is chosen, he's got this special ministry within this unity of the 12 apostles. He is given the keys of Jesus' church. He alone is singled out as the rock, the foundation on which this church will be built, will be supported. He alone is singled out as the shepherd of the whole flock of God. His ministry is special. He is the one who is meant to strengthen his brothers in the faith. And so in the Church we have the ministry of the Pope, who is the successor of Saint Peter. His ministry is special for us because the Pope is the perpetual and the visible source and foundation of the unity, both of the bishops and of the whole group of the faithful. He is the visible sign. He has the fullness of power because he is the shepherd of the whole flock. And so we are asked to be united with our Pope. And if you know anything about the Franciscans, the first rule, the first chapter of our rule, talks about our love, our obedience, our respect to the Pope and to his successors canonically elected. Love the Pope is the message. Pray for the Pope. Be united with the Pope. Simply because of that office that he is holding for us. The bishops are the successors of the apostles. And so they are in charge of the particular church that they have been assigned to look after. So it's important for us again to have the same respect, the same love for our local bishop, to pray for him, to be united with him, to support him as much as we can. because our power, our ministry comes from the head. And remember, the head of the Church, for us, the visible sign of that is the Pope. And so the bishops have their power, fulfill their ministry, essentially in union with the Pope. Because that's where their authority comes from. My authority as the parish priest here is because I'm united with my local bishop. It is the bishop, the archbishop in our case, who accepts me, my nomination as a parish priest. He is giving me that authority to minister, to serve the people in this local area. And so whatever I do, I need to be united in spirit, in truth, in love, in service with my local bishop and with the Pope. They exercise their power, most of all, the Pope by himself, sometimes proclaiming a definitive teaching concerning our faith and morals, which happens rarely. But if he does, we are told to accept it with faith. Also the pronouncements of the Ecumenical Council, where the bishops are gathered together in communion with the Pope to make statements, to teach us, to help us understand who the Church is, what is the teaching of the Church. And so these statements are important to us, are invaluable to us as Catholics. So the essential message really is to be united with the Pope, to be united with your bishop, to love them, to support them, to listen to what they're saying. But remember that aspect, the key aspect, being united with one another. And so the ordained ministers in the Church have a responsibility to teach, to sanctify, and to govern. That's the particular ministry. Because the bishops have been given, as the successors of the apostles, the gift of the Spirit to ensure that we hold on to the truth of the teaching of the faith. That teaching is passed on to us in its entirety. The sanctifying ministry, essentially through the divine worship, through the Eucharist, which is the center of the life of the particular Church. And so our celebration of the Eucharist is what brings us together, what unites us on a daily basis, but particularly on a Sunday. We become sanctified because of what we celebrate, because of who we receive. And the only reason why I am able to celebrate and lead us in that celebration is because of the ministry of what I have received from the bishop, from the Pope, from the Church. And the governing office, ensuring that things are being put in place, that things are as they should be, that we don't deviate from what is acceptable for us, and that we don't err from the truth in any way. And so this is the primary mission, to teach, to sanctify, to govern. The laity share particularly in the other office of Christ, and that is the priestly, the kingly, the prophetic office of Christ. That's the mission of the laity primarily. The priestly office is that of prayer, of offering sacrifice, of actually consecrating the whole world where you live, your work, your rest, your socializing, every part of your daily life, the things you engage in, bringing the gospel, bringing the Church's teaching into the society as a whole, into the political life, into the economics, imbuing all these things, all these human institutions with the spirit of the Gospels. That's the great mission of the laity, to ensure that the spirit of Christ is being passed on. And you do it by prayer. You do it by consecrating, offering everything to the Lord. The prophetic witness you fulfill by bearing witness to the truth, by bearing witness to the Church's teaching, because the Church's teaching is not just herself. The Church's teaching is Christ's teaching. It's God's truth that we try to live by. And the kingly office. You are to rule over your heart. You are to get rid of and eradicate evil and sin from your hearts and from your lives. You show to the world what is possible with the Spirit of God alive and at work in you. So it's a tremendous mission. It's a tremendous witness that you are called to bear. And it applies to every part of your life. To understand that you're not just within the Church, you are the Church. And because you are the Church, the way you fulfill that mission will give a witness as to what the Church is truly about. So the Church is not me as a priest or a parish priest. The Church is you. If you want to bear witness to the Church's unity, then we need to witness to it together. How are we united together? All the people, all the members of the Church, together with the parish priest, together with our bishop, together with our pope. Because if we break that unity, we are separating ourselves from what the Church is and from what we are called to be. So the mission of the laity is invaluable. You know, even in our local community this very week, a couple of days ago, who is collecting the food for those who are in need and giving it to our school next door? Well, it is you, the members of this Catholic community, who have come together, organized yourselves, and you bring the gospel alive. You show to the people our unity as Catholics, inspired by our faith, inspired by the spirit of service, helping those who are in need. And so you, by doing that, you are showing who we are as Church, just to make it a concrete example of what Church is doing. And the consecrated life, I mentioned at the beginning people like myself, but there's a whole variety of people and different forms of life within the consecrated life. So we've got the eremitic life, those who, like hermits, go and live in silence, more separate, withdrawn from the world, being closely united with the Lord in hiddenness, in silence, offering their life for the service of the Church, for the service of others. There are the consecrated virgins and widows who bind themselves closely to the Lord. That's their ministry. That's the sign that they are showing to other people. The religious life, like myself, the Capuchin friars, and you can see how many varieties there are of religious life and all those that I'm talking about at the moment. The secular institutes, people living in the world but still wishing to live a closer connection with the Gospels, with the evangelical counsels that the religious profess. The societies of apostolic life. All of us, in one way or another, are bearing witness to the fact that we are pilgrims on this earth, that we belong to God. We are a sign of the world to come. And we do that simply by living the gospel message. And so there's a massive variety, a huge variety. And I know it's just a very short summary of what is the makeup of the Church. And I'm sure I would have left many things out and essential things. But that's why I would ask you, read up about it. Discover how much is taking place. And that was one of the reasons why here in our parish we wanted to have the celebration of the life within the parish. Because so often we don't realize, we're so enclosed and focused on our little group, we don't realize how much is actually taking place through the members of this church. And just as St. Paul says, if one member is joyful, we all share in that joy. If one suffers, we all suffer. If one of us does things, we all do it. And so it's important to celebrate, to become aware of how much is taking place, of this richness that we are part of, and that we contribute to its richness, the richness of the Catholic Church. God bless.